Welcome back. I want to go into more detailed information. I want to go a little bit deeper on the connection between sex hormones and stress hormones. And I'm going to keep it really super simple. And I want you to just utilize this information so that you can understand a little bit more about how your body is giving you the signals that we talked about in the last video, how all of your different hormonal systems work together in this beautiful orchestra, in this beautiful symphony, and you are the conductor. So this is where you have an opportunity to kind of dictate how you're going to protect your hormones and how you can find balance in your hormones. Because the idea is, one of my teachers, Dr. Claudia Welch, wrote a book, and I think I've mentioned this before, called Balance Your Hormones, Balance Your Life. And that's what the editor wanted to title the book. But really what she says is balance your life and then balance your hormones. And then I might also just say there's a conflict or an argument about whether or not you can actually balance your hormones, and what does that mean if you're trying to balance your hormones. So anyway, we're going to go into this exactly because this for me is perhaps the most valid, valuable information you can have to understand your body and how you are trying to attempt to find balance. Now remember, a scale is always teetering. It's never actually going to stay perfectly balanced because it's always going up and down a little bit. This is great news because we don't want to be in a place of static energy anyway. We don't want to be static at any time. We don't want to be at a perfect place of balance at any time. We need the ebb and flow. So ebb and flow is where it's at. Okay, so I want to talk about our hormones in buckets, and we're focusing now on just sex hormones and stress hormones. So remember in the last video, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone in the sex bucket, and then in the stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, insulin, those kind of hormones. So don't worry about any of that. We're just putting them in buckets to make it really simple to understand. So you have a bucket of sex hormones here. This is an example of a super juicy, very nicely full bucket of sex hormones. And then you have another bucket over here of stress hormones. Also a really nice, juicy, full bucket of stress hormones. Now, here's what happens. We get into life, we get busy, things get stressful, events happen, scary things happen, sadness happens, all different kinds of things happen, and we begin to use up our stress hormones, okay? So this level begins to go down. The stress level, the stress hormones begin to get utilized. Now, our body's amazing. It keeps making more stress hormones. It keeps going and going and going. The stress hormones are made in your adrenal glands, and your adrenals sit right on top of your kidneys. Guess what? It's close to your ovaries. It's close to your uterus. It's close to your reproductive system. Fun fact, very interesting. But now, here we go with Western medical doctors will not, I don't know if they agree with the term adrenal fatigue, because they say that your adrenals never run out of stress hormones. They will never stop making stress hormones. They will always be available. But how do you explain burnout? How do you explain fatigue that is just like unbearably, like you can't push on anymore? This is kind of the example of really burning out, being totally burnt out, using up all of our stress hormones and not giving our body a chance to recuperate. Now, here's a quick plug for sleep. Your body recuperates and rebuilds while you sleep. That's why it's so incredibly important for taking care of your hormones and taking care of your body to sleep. That's when you repair and recover. So, side note, that was a little bonus item. Okay, so let's just say we're burned out, okay? Let's just say that we've completely pushed everything to the absolute edges. We've burned the candle at both ends. We only have maybe a little bit of a wick left, and we are just done. We can't even push beyond anymore. Your body is so smart. What happens now is your body will say, hey, I'm out of stress hormones, but look, I've got all kinds of juicy sex hormones over here. I'm going to start borrowing from that bucket. So then your body starts to say, I'm going to grab some of these and I'm going to use them to fight stress. I'm going to grab these sex hormones and I'm going to use them to fill up my stress bucket so I can take care of this beautiful, amazing person who is pushing her limits to the absolute edge. And now I'm going to utilize these juicy sex hormones so that I can keep fighting stress. Now, guess what happens? Your body's like, okay, fine, that's cool, no problem, except your stress hormones, your sex hormones as you go throughout life naturally decline. Oh my gosh, this is kind of an issue. This is what we're talking about in perimenopause. Actually, it even begins before that in PMS. Your PMS symptoms are related to this back and forth borrowing. So PMS and then perimenopause and then menopause. So as you get older and older, your estrogen levels begin to decline. And then your body's like, oh snap, I don't have any place to go. I don't have any beautiful sex hormones left to steal from. So that is when we go into these menopausal symptoms like hot flashes and brain fog and fatigue and bloatedness and our digestion not working so well, because here's another little bonus item. Estrogen lives in every single cell of your body. Isn't that amazing? Every cell of your body has estrogen. So when your estrogen naturally begins to decline because you no longer have a cycle, you no longer are ovulating, so we're losing that flow of monthly hormones. So the estrogen starts to decline. This is just a natural part of getting older. It's no big deal. It's nothing to freak out about, but it's a time to add more juiciness to our life, kind of at a higher level. This is why our kids are grown up and they're out of the house. We're not so worried about hitting it hard in our career and creating a whole new big thing. Maybe you already have a house, you already have a place to live, so you're not worried about being motivated about having the fanciest car or the biggest house. This is when things start to calm down a little bit. Hopefully your stress is also starting to come down. But guess what? We live in this crazy modern world where it's getting harder and harder and harder to balance the stress in our environment, in our society, with the phone, the computer, the emails, the conversations. Everywhere we go, we're just having high levels of stimulation. So this is where you have to take charge in order to find balance and to feel better in your body and to help counter this situation. So if you're young, start to pay attention now. Start to recognize when you're feeling burned out, when you're feeling depleted, when you're feeling low on energy. Do something about it now. Go to bed earlier. Make sure you're eating 3 meals a day with protein, fat, and fiber. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water. Make sure you're moving your body the right amount. You're not exhausted and going out to run a marathon. I did that. I had a 1-year-old baby and I decided to go run a marathon. And so after my daughter Haley was probably like 6 months or so, 6 or 8 months, I would throw her in the stroller and I'd go run 10 miles. I mean, what was I thinking? I have no idea. This was my way of trying to bring balance to my body, but obviously it kind of ended up depleting me instead. But you know, I was still a nursing mom and Haley was on me at all times. I still loved absolutely every minute of the first year of her life. So that's a little sidebar. But if you're a young mom, you know, please don't feel like you have to do everything. Please don't feel like you have to be in charge and add more and more and more stuff to your plate. I see women doing it all the time. And I know if someone told me not to run a marathon back then, I would have said, I'm fine. I can totally do it. I'm excited. This feels good to me. I would have argued with you, but anyway, please be smart and please manage the stress and sex hormone balance. Okay, how do you do that? Before we begin to talk about how do we do this, how do we balance this a little bit better by being proactive, I want to hit on this concept of digestion and hormones, okay? So in the last video, we talked about all the different hormones that you have for your hunger hormone, your satiated hormone, the hormone that tells you when you're full, when you're hungry, when to eat. You have hormones that direct your body to that. So again, they all work together, but let's just talk for a moment about your digestion, and I'm going to show you how this gets all tied in, because as you know, everything we do here in this program is we are looking at food, we're looking at stress management, and then we're also looking at creating your life that you want to live. You know, learning your yes and no's, making choices, being smart, standing up for yourself, and finding balance by listening to your body wisdom. So we're going back to the food here just for a second, because this is a little, I think, hopefully you can see this on the video. This is a little sample of your GI, of your colon. So your body, when you eat food, turns it into juicy food. Ideally, your digestion is nice and strong. It takes the food that you put in and it turns it into this juicy nutrition, and then your body is going to absorb that to build your tissues and to give you energy and to build muscle and bone and blood. So what happens though is sometimes we eat big chunks of food, or we eat on the run, or we eat really fast, or sometimes we just skip meals altogether. This puts pressure on your digestion, it puts pressure on your body, and what ends up happening is you have these beautiful little villi in your digestive colon. What happens is your body starts to get sluggish because we begin to have chunks of things start to build up in the colon. In Ayurveda, we call this undigested food. So it's basically undigested food that our body's just trying to push it through. Your body doesn't like it though, because it wants to absorb the nutrients and it wants to share it out with the rest of your tissues to give you energy and build your body and to keep things going all the time and to give you energy. But if we're not eating food and digesting it and utilizing it as energy, we start to shut down in our digestion, okay? So imagine you have these chunks of food now. Now, chunks of food can't become part of it can't be absorbed as nutrition because it's too big, it's too bulky, and your body doesn't quite know what to do with it. So it says, forget about trying to draw the nutrition out of our food, because this is not digested enough for me to do anything with it. So your body comes in and says, I just need to push this on through and get rid of it. So I'm going to add a little bit of lubrication in the form of mucus. So then your body puts this mucousy layer here. Your body puts this mucousy layer here over the villi. And now, I know I'm getting super scientific here, but I promise you, this is going to all come full circle and make sense. So you get a little mucus situation here, and then these chunks of food are going to slide on through. So you'll eventually eliminate it, or it will get stored as fat. That is also another option, which is considered like leaky gut. Your body will say, hey, I don't know how to take care of this. I'm just going to I'm going to go pop it over and put it away for right now because I don't know how to digest it. So anyway, you create this mucousy layer. The mucousy layer that happens in your colon is what can cause some fatigue. It can cause skin problems. It can cause hormonal imbalance. It can cause those food hormones like the satiated and the hunger hormones. It can cause them to go off kilter. It can cause them to get mixed messages and not send the right message to your brain about when to eat or when to stop eating. That's usually what happens, is we end up overeating sometimes because we're trying to nourish our body. We're trying to bring nutrients in because your body is craving nutrition, but it's not getting in there. So then these hormones kind of get all confused and they get a little jumbled. I know it sounds terrible, but again, your body is incredibly smart and strong, and she knows exactly what to do, and I'm going to tell you how we're going to fix it.